Hey everybody, thanks for joining today. My name is Logan Welly with Fivetran. We're going to hang out a couple minutes here just to let a couple more people join the webinar, and we'll get kicked off here in about 3 minutes. Hang tight. Hey folks, we'll give another minute or two here, and then I will get right into the presentation. So just bear with us another minute or two. All right, I will go ahead and get started here. Again, thank you everybody for joining the webinar today to learn about Fivetran and Snowflake and how we're able to centralize data leveraging Partner Connect. So quick agenda for today. We're going to do just a quick 15-minute intro by Snowflake, and I have my counterpart at the Snowflake team, Harsha Kapre, on the line here. He's going to be chiming in and talking about the Snowflake value prop and how their data warehouse is revolutionizing cloud data warehousing. Then I'll quickly dive into a Fivetran intro, and then we'll ultimately go over the Partner Connect feature inside of Snowflake and how many Snowflake customers are leveraging something like Fivetran to centralize their data. And then we will go ahead and allow for about 5 minutes for Q&A at the end of the session here. So with that, I'll kick it over to you, Harsha.
Hey, thanks, Logan, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. My name is Harsha Kapre. I'm product manager here at Snowflake. I focus on the partner ecosystem, so everything to do with drivers, connectors, connectivity, and of course, very strong engagement with our partners like Fivetran and working with Logan and the team quite a bit. We'll talk a little bit about Partner Connect as we get towards the end of this and what we've done there to make this even easier. A little bit about me. I've been in Snowflake or at Snowflake for about 1.5 years in this role. Prior to that, I was at IBM for just a short stint of about 18 years. So this is my second job, but definitely not new to the industry. And yeah, I've been loving my time at Snowflake. We're growing rapidly, and I'll give you a quick overview of Snowflake, and we'll dive into a little bit of the the actual solution that we want to talk today. So a bit about us. We were founded in 2012 by some pretty strong industry veterans, guys from Oracle, Teradata, some others. And what they saw is that companies were really struggling with their current solutions for data and analytics. Data volumes are growing, variety of the data was growing, and demand for access to that data really wasn't being addressed. A lot of strains on technology, people, processes. So they decided that they wanted to solve these problems by really having a goal of building the best analytic SQL relational database in the world. They thought the cloud was the right medium to do that. You can see here significant funding, significant backing from some pretty established vendors or investors, not vendors, investors, sorry. Proven track record of success. And the reason we did that, and the reason we've gone through so much funding, is we really want to have the resources to grow rapidly, and we're doing that now. We've grown significantly from the small company that I joined a year and a half ago to the big company I work at now. And we're seeing a lot of success since we first had our first customers back in 2014, with over 1,000 customers today. Next slide, Logan. So a little bit about what we're seeing, what we tried to solve. So I'll kind of go through the value prop of Snowflake just quickly here. So when we talk to our customers, we really hear the same stories and issues that I've been hearing for years, right? Even back in my days at IBM and other places when big data first started, people were struggling with the same things, right? The data is expanding rapidly. The scale of applications and tools is growing like crazy. New tools coming up all over the place. Customers asking, do you integrate with this, or this? And new users coming on board all the time, not only within existing regions, but in new regions globally, right? And new use cases are coming up, almost daily. But the problem is that the data is still siloed, right? I know we've been talking about siloed data for years, but that's still one of the biggest issues we have. It's not accessible to everyone who needs it. And when you do finally get control and figure out who has access to what, you get a bunch of new users that join or new processes that come on board. Now you've got to start from scratch. So it's really difficult and expensive to maintain these technologies, and it's really difficult and expensive to scale those technologies. And especially one of the things that's not shown here is really the global aspect of this. Adds another dimension to the problem. The next slide, Logan. So this is kind of the traditional way that companies and organizations have tried to address the problem, and we see this as really not the right way to do it, right? So the traditional architectures were really kind of two buckets, either shared disk or shared nothing, right? In shared disk, you've got a single cluster with shared storage. If shared nothing, you've got decentralized local storage, but still single cluster. The ability to scale and to do what we're talking about really isn't possible with these technologies and with these approaches. With both of these, you've still got storage and compute very tightly coupled together. So you really can't match the needs of scaling instantaneously or elastically at any point, right? The key issue here is also workload isolation, right? I think a lot of us remember the days where, or still probably some companies are doing this, where they say, I've got so many ETL processes, but so many users online, and these guys compete, or these processes compete for resources. So what is the answer? Well, the answer is let's schedule our ETL jobs from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. and before our users get on, and let's hope that they completed without errors, because if there was an error and have to redo it, we might have to wait till the next day. And actually that was a way for people to get around some of these problems initially, but then came the globalization, right? Now you've got new teams coming online in India, China, Asia, everywhere, and all of a sudden those timings don't really work out, right? So without true workload isolation, you're really limited in what you can do, and then you kind of fall into this trap of going into what we call the knob-based optimization. You're looking for tuning, you're looking for investing in additional servers, additional compute nodes. But that's all static investments, right? That's something that sits on your floor and you've paid for whether you're using it or not. Next slide. So how do we do it? Logan, you can go ahead and build this slide out. Snowflake looked at this problem and came up with really a brand new architecture. And this is when I talked about our industry veterans that really wanted to try and solve this problem the right way. And so what they did is they looked at starting first with obviously the cloud, and everything starts with flexible cloud storage as the foundation, which gives you the ability to store unlimited amounts of structured and semi-structured data. That's a key thing I'll talk about in a little bit. So on top of that storage layer, we built the services and SQL layer, and those are the pieces that you need to run your warehouse without any management. We handle the optimization, the security, availability, all of that for you. And then what we did, which is really the key, is the ability to manage what we call virtual warehouses, which are really flexible compute nodes. These allow you to execute your queries and transformations, but they allow you to handle that issue of workload isolation, right? You can create a warehouse, a virtual warehouse at any time, either through SQL commands or through the UI. If you have different workloads with different needs, you can size your warehouses differently. So in this example, you can see we've got a warehouse, what we call a virtual warehouse for our data science group. We've got one for our data transformation group. And the L, the M, the S indicate the size of that warehouse. We use t-shirt sizes. So, you know, a medium, I think, is 4 nodes, a large is 8 nodes, and we keep scaling up and down like that. And so you can pick the size you need based on your workloads. But the important piece of this is these virtual warehouses work completely independently. So I can have my data scientists working on their large warehouse, my queries coming in from, from some ad hoc queries on the small warehouse, my reporting team coming in through the BI warehouses, and there's no competition for resources, no workload contention at all. We also have this notion of a multi-cluster warehouse, which we can talk about a little later, but that's where you get into the notion of automatic scaling, where our multi-cluster warehouse will actually detect queuing or potential queuing, and it'll start scaling itself up by replicating clusters automatically. So out of the box, you can do all of that manually. You can create as many virtual warehouses or compute clusters as you want. You can scale them independently. You can add more on the fly, or with the multi-cluster warehouse, you can do all of this automatically. Go ahead, Logan, to the next one. Oh, yeah, this slide built out a little bit funny, but there's your services and SQL layer on the top. All right, so here's really the key benefits of that architecture and all the pieces I've talked about, right? It really boils down to 5 or 6 key benefits that I'll go through really quickly. So number one is that first and foremost, Snowflake is a complete SQL database. And when I say complete SQL database, I mean, we work with the tools that business users understand, that they're familiar with, for both ETL and analytics, right? So Snowflake can come in, we plug in with, whatever the tools are that you need, through standard interfaces like JDBC, ODBC. We have a number of other ways to integrate as well, but we make it very simple. Second piece of that is Snowflake is fully ACID compliant. It's a relational database, supports role-based security, multi-statement transactions, all the typical features you expect from a relational database. Second benefit is the zero management, right? So this is a key piece of Snowflake, right? There is no tuning, there is no management, by our customers. You load your data, you run your queries, we do the rest. There's no infrastructure and admin costs. There's no concern about high availability. We cover multi-region support, even multi-cloud support now that we're also available on both AWS and Azure. Fully managed, so there's no knobs or tuning required. So there's no indexes, there's no distribution keys, there's no partitioning, no vacuuming. Next is the notion of all your data, right? So when we talk about relational databases, traditionally we're talking about structured data. In the case of Snowflake, though, we're talking about both structured and semi-structured data, and we handle semi-structured data natively. So JSON, XML, Avro, all handled natively in Snowflake, which makes it very easy for centralizing your data for your users. We make that data available to any user, any application, and we scale at the petabyte level. You can query petabytes of data in as little as a few seconds in many cases. So, unlimited scale and really the notion of all your data for all your users. And so talking about all of your users, we are designed around that concept that I talked about earlier about being able to separate and isolate workloads, right? So if you have your data science users, you have your BI team, your ETL folks, whatever you have, you can make Snowflake fully available as if they're the only ones on the system, right? So, loading your data doesn't impact your query performance. We talked about that example already. You can group access data at the same time, multiple groups accessing data at the same time with no performance degradation, and really unlimited in terms of the number of users that can be using the system at any time or the number of processes. The pay for what you use is really a key piece of this as well. We've heard that before in the cloud space, pay for what you use, but in the case of Snowflake, what is unique is we scale the compute up and down transparently and automatically. And compute is completely separate from storage. So you pay your baseline storage costs. Those are essentially pass-through costs of the underlying storage, which in the case of AWS would be the S3 costs, right? And because everything is separate and completely isolated, when you're using your compute resources, you pay for them. When you're not using them, you don't pay for them. And these compute resources auto resume and auto suspend. So if there's no queries coming against them, there's no workloads against them, they'll automatically shut down, and we charge per second. So you're really getting huge savings in terms of actually paying only when the system is being used, only when the system is up and running, and the system is really good at turning itself off when it's not being used. I don't know if you've heard all the promotion around data sharing, but actually maybe we can move to the next slide, Logan. I've got a slide on data sharing. This is really a cool feature of Snowflake and the way we've architected it is that we make it really easy to share data both within your organization and with other companies, right? Because of the multi-tenant model, we have the capability to enable secure data sharing between companies that are in the same region today, and we'll be moving to a model where we can actually support it across different regions. So the concept is really simple, right? Everybody, Snowflake is multi-tenant, everything is stored in S3. You've got the notion of data providers, data consumers. A provider can create a secure view, and he can choose other accounts to make that data available to. That consumer of the data will see that database show up as a share in their Snowflake environment, and they can import it as a database. The data is copied and stored only once. I shouldn't say copied, it's stored only once. So the consumer of that data, the only thing they're doing is they're running their own compute resources against that data, but we're not copying the data, we're not moving the data. So it's really instantaneous access, no more FTP, no more complex ETL processes to move data between organizations, between partners. And the last slide on my side. Okay, so have to have a nice slide that just shows some cool logos, but really the point here is that we are having a lot of success in the market. We are growing very rapidly. We've got over 1,000 successful customers to date, and still growing beyond that. A lot of joint customers with our friends at Fivetran in particular. I know that we started off very, very hot together, and we're continuing to see huge expansion, especially because of Partner Connect today, making it really easy. We'll talk about it in a minute. But the key takeaway here is with these customers to date, I don't think we've had a single failed deployment. So that that's a testament not only to the product but also to the team we have at Snowflake, with a huge focus on customer success and really making sure our customers are happy and getting the value out of Snowflake. Logan?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Harsha. First of all, quick introduction to myself. My name is Logan Welly, and I run the Strategic Alliances and Partnerships team over at Fivetran, and obviously work very, very closely with the team at Snowflake. I'm based here in Denver, Colorado. Our headquarters is in Oakland, California, in the Bay Area, just up the road from the guys at Snowflake. So quickly just about Fivetran. We were founded in 2012. We really were born out of Y Combinator by our two founders, George Frazier and Taylor Brown. We eventually kind of fell into doing data pipelines. It wasn't the original product that those guys went to Y Combinator for, but quickly discovered that there was a need for people to centralize their data really easily and seamlessly. We've grown to about 500, a little over 500 customers. Not nearly the size, the $900 million war chest that Snowflake has, but we were able to raise our Series A in 2018 of $15 million. We have, as I mentioned, offices in San Francisco and Denver in the US. And then I know we're running this webinar through our Dublin and EMEA team. And quick note on that, the Snowflake team obviously has a large presence in the EMEA and Europe as well. And we have an engineering team in Bangalore, India as well. So some of the customers that we have here on the right side, but I'm just going to quickly dive into a little bit more about Fivetran. So Harsha mentioned a couple times there ETL jobs and working, having to manage the ETL process, and really the way that Fivetran has looked at ETL is we've broken it down into classic ETL and the modern data stack. And the traditional ETL model is very heavy lifting. Generally, somebody in-house is looking at all these different applications, these databases that a business might be using, depending on what the business group is. They're literally writing scripts to extract the data from those data sources. They're transforming all of that data before they aggregate it and load it into a warehouse, because traditionally data storage is really expensive. So they didn't want to load absolutely everything into the warehouse. So this had a bunch of siloed efforts. It was very manual, and ultimately at the end of the day, it was fully managed by IT. So as the different business units, the BI team or the marketing team was needing data, they had to rely on the IT team to actually be able to extract the data from their different data sources. If they transformed it and dropped certain things that they eventually needed, they had to go back to the IT team and say, hey, I need this table or that object in order to be able to do my queries. So the way that we've moved today, and a big part of this is because of the super powerful columnar data warehouses like Snowflake. The modern ELT model really is, don't pick and choose your data. Load absolutely all of your data into a centralized location like Snowflake so that you can have access to it at any time. So what Fivetran is really modeled is we really only do the extract and the load. We recommend that all of our customers do the transformation inside the warehouse itself, because frankly, going back to the data pipeline to transform your data is counterintuitive to what we're trying to solve. Having all of your data in a super powerful warehouse like Snowflake allows you to have all of the data at your fingertips to be able to do whatever you want with it, rather than going back to your data pipeline or your ETL job to transform or manage the data. And then ultimately, in a lot of our cases with Snowflake, we then see a visualization tool or something sit right on top of Snowflake to be able to have the BI team be able to visualize their data. So what we've decided and built at Fivetran is rather than build a platform that allows a client or customer to interface with Fivetran and build their data pipelines manually, we decided to build a fully managed zero configuration data pipeline as a service. So everything is 100% configured by us, and I'll go into this in detail here, but we connect into hundreds of different data sources. We build standardized schemas, and I'll talk about this in detail here in a second. But our goal here is give the analysts, give the business users the ability to point and click and load their data without relying on IT. Make it really, really simple. Because data warehousing today is so fast and cost effective and highly scalable like Snowflake, load all of your data. Don't pick and choose it. And because that's the model, Fivetran is really easily able to simply load all of the data into Snowflake in a really easy fashion. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we eliminate all the configurability, right? Classic ETL is in our world is antiquated, and everybody should be using the ELT approach and loading all of their data. So today we have over 100 pre-engineered connectors. We built about 70 in 2018, and this is our bread and butter. Fivetran goes out and builds a connector into a data source, and I'm going to show you here in a second. But we predefine and pre-configure what the data is going to look like on the other side. Now we treat a couple data sources. Not all data sources are created equal. So we'll treat Salesforce a little bit differently than Marketo and NetSuite or databases, and I'll talk about some of that in detail here. We are building anywhere from 2 to 6 new one-to-one connectors every month right now. We also have built our cloud function connectors. So one of the things that we struggled with in the past was customers would come to us and say, hey, you have 6 out of the 7 connectors that we need, and we need that 7th connector. So we've actually built connections into something like Lambda or Google Cloud Functions or Azure Functions that allow our customers to be able to call endpoints on private APIs or connectors that we don't support today to be able to load some of that data. But some of the highlighted connectors are obviously some of our more popular connectors, Google Analytics 360, Adobe Analytics, NetSuite is a big one of ours, Marketo, But obviously, most popular ones are going to be Salesforce, Google AdWords, Google Analytics, Facebook ads. And then here's a list of all of our databases as well that we support as sources. So this is the main thing you want to take away from how Fivetran is able to simply load data. We have two data normalization behaviors. Number one is when we pull from a API, we normalize that data into a structured schema, right? And so we say, hey, you're going to pull your data from Marketo. This is exactly what your Marketo data is going to look like on the other end. We replicate from databases and sources that we treat like databases, so Salesforce and NetSuite. We just do a one-to-one replication. So we're not going to say, hey, we're going to predefine what your schema is going to look like on the other end. We're simply going to connect to it and automatically update that based on exactly how you have it structured in the source. And what we do then is in our documentation, you guys can go to this at fivetran.com/docs. Every single one of our connectors that we have a predefined schema for, we give that schema. So we're able to produce that inside of our docs and say, hey, this is where the primary keys and foreign keys are. This is how everything's going to be related, and give you a map of exactly how the schema is going to be structured when you connect with Fivetran. A couple of you are probably wondering how we do incremental batch updates. This is also a key takeaway. If something changes in the source itself, Fivetran will automatically update that data into the warehouse itself. So if you add a record in a source, we'll go ahead and add that record into Snowflake. If you update the record, we'll go ahead and update the record in the warehouse. We do not delete anything. So if you delete a record, what happens is Fivetran appends a column called Fivetran_deleted, and we mark that record as deleted. So you can hard delete it from the warehouse if you want, or you can just query against it and know what you delete. We also handle all automatic schema migration. So if a column is added in the source, we'll add a column. If you remove a column, we'll not remove that column. If you change a data type, we'll change that data type. If you add an object, we'll add an object. If you remove an object, we will not remove the object from the warehouse. And this is really key because, again, all you're simply doing is pointing and clicking and adding a data source, but Fivetran is handling all of this behind the scenes for every single one of our data sources. So it's really important to understand why Fivetran and Snowflake, and you know that's kind of the core philosophy that led us to work really closely together, and then ultimately what brought about Partner Connect. So core philosophy: get all of your data in Snowflake. Don't fuss around with it. And once your data is there, really, we want you spending your time in Snowflake. We don't want you spending your time in Fivetran unless you're coming back to add more data sources. This really reallocates your valuable time. You're not spending your time on ETL jobs. You're not going to the data pipeline. When something breaks, which inevitably happens because an API changes or something happens, it's fully managed by Fivetran. So we are fully maintaining and ensuring that your data is delivered into Snowflake at the end of the day. And most importantly, we have a proven track record of working really closely with Snowflake. So Fivetran's a platinum level partner. We are one of 5 or 6 key partners that work really closely with the Snowflake team, both from HQ and also from delivering a really great customer experience to the customers on the ground level. We've been able to grow our customer base, mutual customer base, to over 150 customers today. And we're the #1 ETL vendor of choice by Snowflake customers. So I am going to give everyone a quick demo of, oops, let me go back to the worksheets here. So I'm gonna actually log into Snowflake. And this is the UI of Snowflake as it's set up today. I won't pretend like I know everything that's going inside of here. I'm not a technical person, but that's great for us to show you that I don't need to be technical to be able to load data into my Snowflake account. So all I have to simply do is go ahead and click on Partner Connect. Then I simply just click on Fivetran. Now what's going to happen behind the scenes here is Fivetran is going to auto create a extra small data warehouse inside of Snowflake. And by simply clicking this button and saying connect, Fivetran is now creating a warehouse inside of Snowflake for Fivetran to now dump data into. So the account has been activated, and I just need to go and click this activate button. Now what's happening here is I'm spinning up my Fivetran account. So the account has been created, it's been connected to Snowflake, and all I have to do is add a password here and start my free 2-week trial. Now I'm in the Fivetran UI, and the first thing I'm going to do is add a connector. So let's do something really easy like Salesforce. Go ahead and click on Salesforce, and we're just going to name the schema here, Partner Connect Demo. Now what's going to happen for all of our API sources, well, the majority of our API sources, is we are going to OAuth into my Salesforce account. So all that's happened now is I'm OAuthing, and it says, great, you've authenticated the data source. I'm going to save and test this. And now Fivetran has said, okay, you've successfully connected to Fivetran to Salesforce. If I have any questions at all, I reference the documentation. Here's a list of all of our docs and the specifics for how do we handle the sync for Salesforce, right? Here are all the details. If I wanted to sync Marketo next, great, I can go to Marketo, see the setup requirements, all the instructions, and then here's the beautiful schema that I mentioned before. Every single one of our data sources has really detailed documentation. But I'll go back to the demo here. So after I've connected everything, I just simply am going to say that I want to view the connector. Great, we've gone ahead and fetched the schema, so I can actually do a little bit of customization here. Very, very light, because as we said before, our core philosophy is load all your data sources and load all the data. But a couple key things that we want to be able to do here. One, I can set my replication frequency. So if I only want to pull every 24 hours, I can pull every 24 hours. Right now, this is not job-based. We're only able to replicate based on time period. And the fastest we can do is every 5 minutes. For certain data sources, particularly with Snowflake, because they're so fast, we can manually move replication to every 1 minute. A couple features here, if I wanted to resync, for some reason I needed to reset everything and resync, we will do a full historical resync when we pull the data from the first set up the connector, and then we incrementally update based on timestamps and logs. But then I'll come down here, and now I can actually pick and choose the tables and objects that I do or do not want to sync over. You'll notice here that some of these are showing up as not queryable. That's because I'm not an administrator in our Salesforce account, and I cannot pull this data. We also have configurability down to the column level, so I can expand one of our tables and pick and choose the columns that I do or do not want to sync. I can also resync a table, one table at a time, if I didn't want to resync the entire data source. But other than that, all I'm simply going to do is say, great, save my changes, and unpause the connector. Now Fivetran has started its historical sync. We'll then give you a sync history. So because I set up this account from scratch, you won't see anything right now, but if we were to log in several hours, you would see when the sync started, when sync's completed, did something not successfully sync? If so, we'll give you granularity into what happened. But in a nutshell, that's it. The core philosophy there is we really want to make sure that it's really easy for our customers and Snowflake customers to load their data into Snowflake, connect their data sources, load absolutely everything, and then simply log out of Fivetran. Spend your time inside of Snowflake using the data, knowing that it's incrementally updating, and you have all of your data at your fingertips. So I'll jump back over here. Yep.
Logan, actually, if you could go back to the Fivetran interface, I had one thing to highlight. If you could click on Warehouse, because I think
yes.
One of the things that you showed, it was so easy that we didn't even have to show this part. But I think the key piece of Partner Connect, and by the way, I'm the PM behind Partner Connect, so I'm very familiar, and it's close to home. But the key feature that Logan mentioned earlier is that we do the setup and integration for you, right? So what you saw is exactly how it worked. He just did this live, right? There was no entering usernames, entering passwords, defining databases, schemas, all that, right? You can see here the host, user, password, everything is already set up for you. So on the Snowflake side, when you click on Partner Connect and click on Fivetran, we create these objects for you. We send this all over to Fivetran. They create the connection. They do all the setup. So it was as easy as the only thing he had to do, as you saw, was create the source connection to Salesforce. And when he clicked sync, it already knew exactly where to go. There was no There was no setup, there was no running scripts, there was really no configuration of any kind, which is really what makes Partner Connect, so amazing, and why we're saying this, this speeds up, getting started with Snowflake and Fivetran, even beyond what we had before.
Yeah, and that's a really great point. I mean, the majority of those 150 plus customers were connecting to Snowflake the manual way until we had Partner Connect released, and we just made that one step easier. And again, the whole goal there was make it as easy as possible for Snowflake users to be able to get their data loaded into Snowflake so that they can spend their time in Snowflake. And so, yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry, Logan. I was just saying the cool thing is, you get the trial of Fivetran. So right now, given we're actually seeing a huge amount of success with Partner Connect, we got so many customers in the trial, like it blows away the 150 number, but we don't count those as full customers till they actually give us a little bit of money. But the number of customers that are evaluating through Partner Connect, I mean, it's just, that with the assumption that a lot of those will hopefully turn into real customers. I mean, we're seeing huge success because we've made this, so easy to get started.
Yeah, totally. And just to kind of reiterate all of that, after you add a data source, it's simply just going back and saying, okay, great, I want to add Oracle or I want to add Marketo, and going through the process to add more and more data sources. It's fairly easy and seamless, and then you have a bit of a UI here to see, hey, how is my Salesforce connector running? It's still working on its historical sync, obviously. But that's the idea is we want to make this as easy and simple as possible. So I think that's probably one of our last slides here. So again, getting started with Snowflake and Fivetran was even easier just by creating Partner Connect and making this extremely easy on Snowflake clients. So how can you guys all go get set up and test all of this out yourself? Well, the great thing is Snowflake, you can spin up a Snowflake free account right now, and you get $400 of free credits to simply spin up a trial and play around with some of the data inside of Snowflake. So you'll simply just go to trial.snowflake.com. You'll activate your account and set everything up. And then once you're inside of your Snowflake account, you don't have to do anything else other than what I just showed you, which is click on Partner Connect, click on Fivetran, add a couple data sources to see what that data looks like. And now you are up and running in a matter of minutes. It can take, depending on the data source, a couple minutes to load all of your data to a couple days. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it should be that easy for you to just simply connect the data sources, load all of your data into Snowflake, and then you're off to the races on both free trials to test everything out. Harsha, anything else? Because I think that is about it for us.
No, I think you covered it perfectly. I think we can move to Q&A.
Cool. So we'll open this up for questions. You obviously have both. If you want to ask something specifically about Snowflake or specifically about Fivetran, Harsha and myself are both available to answer any questions that you guys might have. I have one here from Rob. So his question is, I think what you're asking here is how do we incrementally update off of databases? So at Fivetran, we do all of our historical sync off of the database itself, and then all incremental updates occur based on the logs. So if we're syncing off of MySQL, we're going to tail the bin logs. For Oracle, we're going to tail log miner. For SQL Server, you're going to need to put on change tracking. But that allows us, A, to not put any strain on the database itself, and B, to incrementally update based on those automatic schema migrations, which I highlighted before. So we can handle things like deletes. We can incrementally update and change data types. So I hope that answers your question.
And I've got a question here, Logan. I think this is for both of us. What happens if I already have a Fivetran account? So I'm starting up a new Snowflake account. Can I use Partner Connect to connect the two? I think I'll let you answer in more detail, Logan. I think the answer is yes. I think Partner Connect will detect that you already have an existing Fivetran account, and it'll link your new Snowflake account to that account, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Yeah, that should be the case. Now, if you're an existing Fivetran customer, we can also coordinate this through your Fivetran account manager. But you should be able to go through and just spin up a Snowflake account and connect to Partner Connect pretty seamlessly. So it'll auto detect that and let you know that, hey, you already have a Fivetran account. You'll click on that. Now it's just simply pointing at the new Snowflake warehouse. I have a question here about our presence in Europe. So as mentioned, Fivetran started in Silicon Valley. We expanded to Denver. We launched our European effort in January of last year. So we've been in Dublin for about a year. And we're finding that about 20% of our customers from Fivetran are actually coming from outside the US, with the bulk of those are in the EMEA region. All right. Any other final questions that we're seeing?
I think we covered everything, Logan.
Great. Well, hopefully that was valuable to everybody. Again, we encourage you to go and spin up a Snowflake trial and start adding your data sources with Fivetran via Partner Connect. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to email us and our team at sales@Fivetran or directly to Thomas at Snowflake, who can answer any specific questions that you guys might have that we might have not answered on the presentation today. Thanks for joining, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.